So hello everyone, we're going to get today's webinar started and I just wanted to start by giving a few introductions. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Hazel and I'm a course advisor here at the University of Manchester, and I'm joined today by my colleague Noah, another of our course advisors here, and two of our academics from the postgraduate certificate in clinical bioinformatics, Dr. Fran Hooley and Dr. Mike Cornell. Thanks both of you for joining us today. So the postgraduate certificate in clinical bioinformatics is a part-time course that's been designed with working professionals in mind, and it allows you to enhance your professional experience with an academic qualification without the need to take a career break or to relocate to Manchester for your studies. The last couple of years have proven to be challenging in the healthcare industry, and this has led to a need for bioinformaticians more than ever before, and bridging the gap between cutting-edge science and the delivery of genomic medicine in clinical practice. The next start date for the postgraduate certificate is in late May, and for that reason we wanted to give anybody considering studying the course the chance to hear from the panel and get answers to their questions about further study. In addition to the postgraduate certificate, we also have flexible study options available through a continuing professional development or CPD route, which we'll talk more about throughout the presentation. As course advisors, Noah and I are here to make the decision-making process while you decide whether further study is right for you, and whether the course is going to meet your needs as simple as possible. We run webinars like this one, but can also offer informal advice and guidance about submitting an application through CV reviews and personal consultations. Our contact details will be available at the end of the webinar if you want any further information from us. We're also recording today's webinar, and a copy will be available early next week on our YouTube channel, and we'll be able to share a link with you when it's ready, so that you can come back and review any of the information that we've covered today at your own time. So before I move on and let the panel introduce themselves, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about the structure of today's webinar. After our introductions, we'll give an overview of the course and the different study options that are available to you. And then we're going to move on and start asking some of the key questions that you're asking us about the course, and making sure that you have all the information that you need to decide about whether further study is right for you. And as today's session is a live event, we will be open for questions and answers throughout, and we encourage you to submit those through the Q&A. And we will come to those at the end of today's session. We've also got the chat function open, and it would be great to hear from you as well. So please do say hello. I can see that somebody already has. Please do say hello and let us know where you're joining us from. So I'm now going to hand over to the panel and ask them to introduce themselves. So Noah, I'm going to come to you first.
Hi everyone, I'm Noah. I am the course advisor for clinical bioinformatics. Some of you may have already spoken to me over email. We may have had some consultations before, so I may be familiar to you. And if I'm not, hello. It's lovely to have this space for you to learn more about clinical bioinformatics. So you can contact me if you have any questions and stuff afterwards. We'll be sharing all of the contact details. But I look forward to hearing from you all, and hopefully you enjoyed today's session. So I think I'll pass on to Dr. Mike Cornell.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Cornell. I'm the Programme Director for the PG Cert in Clinical Bioinformatics. I also work on the Scientist Training Programme for Clinical Bioinformatics, where we work for training people for the NHS, and I'm working on other training courses in this field as well at University of Manchester.
Hi everyone, Fran Hooley, lecturer in Technology Enhanced Learning at the University of Manchester in the School of Health Sciences. So I've been involved in supporting the PG Cert in terms of being a Deputy Director since we launched it. Also involved in other courses such as in Clinical Bioinformatics, such as a MOOC, that we've got a massive open online course which launched back in 2016, I think it was. So yeah, good to see you all anyway. Welcome to the session. I think, are we going to start now, Noah? Okay, great stuff. So just to give you a bit of a summary as to what's in the PG Cert, we've got 4 units, each take 10 weeks to cover. In Unit 1, which is led by Professor Ange Davis, Introduction to Clinical Bioinformatics, this will give you a real solid foundation to the discipline of clinical bioinformatics, looking at the tools and the databases that they use in order to analyse genomic data and analyse and interpret the genetic variants. So yeah, it will give you that firm foundation and kind of set you in good stead for the rest of the course. The second unit, which is Introduction to Health Informatics, sort of takes a bit of a broader view and sort of takes the scope out a little bit further and looking at kind of health informatics in its wider sense. But you'll look at kind of various areas such as coding, and also looking at human factors, and looking at the data pathways, the wider data pathways of patients, and looking at that health data out there, the enormous amount that we've got, and how we can kind of get over issues such as interoperability. So that gives you that wider context. Unit 3 is an introduction to programming within the clinical bioinformatics sphere. So we look at essentially Python programming, but give you a very brief introduction to that. But it's all really about the other skills as well, not just the coding skills that will support you within this discipline. It's looking at how you can look at user requirements, build look at different roles that you'll have in terms of projects that you'll work on, and work collaboratively in order to support the program requirements that are needed to sort of fulfill certain problems and solving problems that you'll do within the unit. And then the final unit is the introduction to next generation sequencing, and that's looking at the theory, the background to that, but also it'll give you experience in looking at a particular tool called Galaxy and building a data pipeline in order to sort of look at also looking at ethics and governance that support that as well. So it's a real rounded course and very much applied, with lots of case studies, lots of practical tools that you'll use, that you would use in a clinical bioinformatics environment. So we're really clear and key is having that practical sense instilled throughout the whole of the course. But those are the 4 units. And yeah, I don't know if you want to go to the next slide. So we're very, over the last 3 years, we've had feedback from students, and from the very start, we appreciate that you'll be studying alongside looking at your, family life, home life, as well as work. So we try to design it so that it's as flexible as possible. So you can cover the whole PG Cert within 12 months, or you can then take 2 units per year, then cover it over 24 months. As I mentioned, there's you can do these. Some of these we can do all of the units as PG, as individual kind of units in their own right. But the idea is that you'll get the support over those 10 weeks. You'll probably commit around about 15 hours of study per week, but that's spread across those 10 weeks. With sort of the 8 weeks of study, with the 2 weeks at the end, which will give you the time to do the assessment. So in terms of support, because this is a distance learning course, so we're aware of you trying to study from your home environments, trying to kind of cover the course material. So what we've tried to build into the pedagogy, the teaching methods, is lots of what we call synchronous time. So you'll have time where there'll be tutorials, you'll join usually at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. So you'll have that support in terms of face-to-face time with the tutors, and also there'll be also group work and peer-to-peer support as well. So that'll help you kind of have that connection with the course and connections to the people that are on it. So you'll have that support, but then we've got lots and lots of learning materials that are structured so you can dip in and dip out and fit it around the commitments you've got within work and within home life. So kind of short videos you know, little knowledge checks. There's tools that we'll use, the clinical bioinformatics that within that environment that we'll use. So we try to build an environment that's kind of, that will support you and give you that, you know, element of practical applied clinical bioinformatics as well at the same time. So you can do the CPD 24 months or the 12 months as a PG Cert. So yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea of the structure. Do you want to go to the next slide?
I think that's perfect.
Oh, is that the end of the slides bit? Yeah, okay, fine, yeah.
So we're going to move on and just be putting some of our questions to the panel, which have come from people who've been submitting questions and getting in touch with us as we build up to the towards the start date for the course. So we'll just get started with that. So the first question we've got is, why do you think it's so important to study clinical bioinformatics now?
Okay, I think that's a question for me. I'm gonna, the reason I think it's so important is that we've seen the development of technologies which have incredibly changed the way genetic diagnosis is done within the health service. So just to put this into some context, if we were looking back sort of 10, 15 years ago, if we had a patient who had retinal dystrophy, we'd know there were about 140 genes involved in different types of retinal dystrophy, but we could only ever look at 2 of them because the process of doing it was so laborious that we'd say, well, these are the 2 most likely. We'll sequence those using these original sequencing techniques. Now we can sequence an entire genome of the patient and do it in a matter of hours. And it's meant that the range of tests that can be performed has expanded enormously, and we're developing a whole new raft of tests as well, so that now that patients are so cancer patients, we can start to look at the tumor DNA that's been shed into their bloodstream and do cell-free sequencing. You can look at the way that the tumor genome develops in a patient and see, you can start to have tailored treatments for them. And you can have whole new ways of diagnosing people with infections. So rather than having to plate out the bacteria that were infecting them and see if you can identify them from colonies grown on a plate, you can sequence the genomes of the viruses and the bacteria and fungi. And I mean, we're seeing some of this in the COVID outbreak. There's been huge amounts of sequencing going on, and the UK's really been world leading in that process, in the amount of sequencing that's been done. So what we're seeing really is this explosion of things that can be done in diagnostics because of the development of these new techniques. And it's probably the most revolutionary period in biology. I think if you were going to look at clinical genetics now, it is the most exciting time to be involved in it.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Mike. I've probably got another question here that follows on quite nicely about, which, what do you think the biggest issue is facing clinical bioinformatics at the moment?
So I'm going to cheat and say 2 big issues. So the first one, I guess, is at the moment, what we're looking at is really diagnosing using the low-hanging fruit, the things that are easy to interpret. And there's a whole range of things that we're going to start to move into in the future of effects on gene regulation and things that we can't interpret at the moment that we'll start to be able to interpret as we get more and more genomes sequenced. And there's going to be new ways of doing these analyses that are going to be incorporated into healthcare and into the analysis of the patient's genome. So this is a whole new raft of analyses that will be undertaken. So that's the positive big thing. The second one is the problem that there just aren't enough bioinformaticians, and there aren't enough informaticians worldwide, and particularly in bioinformatics there aren't enough, and this is impacting a lot of projects, and it's why we we're doing this training. So the STP training that I mentioned earlier is something that the NHS realised they didn't have the staff they were going to need to analyse the data from these platforms that were being developed. So they had Manchester and other universities were developing the training programs for clinical bioinformaticians within the health service. And we were aware that the problems that the NHS faced existed on a worldwide basis. So we're converting the training that we provide to the clinical bioinformaticians within the NHS and offering that as a distance learning thing worldwide now. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. I wanted to give you a little bit of a break in case you had another thing to add. Thank you for that, Mike. That was really fascinating to hear about. So this is for either you or Fran, whoever wants to jump in. So do you have any knowledge of kind of the current students that we've got? Things like where do they work? A lot of the questions that we have are, oh, is my experience suitable for the course? Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about some of the people who are on it so far, where they work, how they're using what they've learned on the course in their career at the moment? Anything like that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So over the last 3 cohorts, we've had, I suppose it's been, in terms of geographical location, it's been a pretty much a 50-50 split between UK and non-UK students, and that's covering the whole of the world, you know, from Hong Kong to Lithuania to Saudi Arabia. And it's been really great to have those conversations on the course from all the different parts of the world, because generally, you know, from Saudi Arabia, we've had, and other areas, they're trying to build their own provision locally. So, you know, they're kind of part of their applications have been, you know, we're trying to do this in our own country and, you know, build a genomic centre or a clinical bioinformatics lab, or, you know, so there's been, but it's been great. It's been a really, truly global course. And in terms of kind of, because this is a marriage between computer science and genomics within, you know, clinical practice. So we have got probably around about between non-clinical and clinical in terms of split. It's been probably about 70% have been non-clinical, and those roles, you know, people have come from sort of PGR students, biology teachers, even an IT project manager and programmer, because of that mix of, you know, the interdisciplinary mix that clinical bioinformatics draws on. So you've kind of got that from one side, and then from the clinical side, we've had medical doctors, we've had clinical scientists, we've had genetic counsellors. So it really does, it's testament to kind of the discipline itself, really, in terms of the array and the diverse population of students that we've had for the course. And they, like I say, it could have been they're trying to build provision in their own local context, or it could be they're looking for a complete career change, such as the IT project manager, who absolutely loved it and, you know, gained so much. And they were supported, even though they didn't have the biology side and they came from an IT background. The course supports both sides, both angles. So yeah, it's been a real global and mixed course.
Awesome, amazing stuff. I think the units that are offered definitely allow for a little bit of kind of flexibility on like kind of what your original knowledge was and what you're going to get at the end of it as well. I think that's been something that quite a few people have been a little bit concerned about. Well, oh, I don't have any programming knowledge, or I don't have as much knowledge in this part of it. But the units that you covered earlier, they obviously cover a whole kind of plethora of topics that feed into the bioinformatics side of things. Obviously, we talked a little bit earlier about the course structure. Would you mind just kind of explaining a little bit how the online teaching works and you know, the support that's available, that kind of stuff?
Sure. So I kind of alluded to it earlier, but you know, like we said earlier, we know that people are struggling in terms of study, work, time, home life, everything else. So what we try to instill into the course is kind of making sure that you got that support. So I mentioned earlier on the tutorials, the discussion forums, and in actual fact, discussions are key to the course, and that is part of the summative assessment as well, one part of the summative assessment for all of the units. So we're really trying to bring that collaborative social learning into the course, because one, to get that support, you know, having peer-to-peer, you know, conversations online, be it via Slack, via different tools, via you know, the virtual learning environment we've got. That was key. And And then we try to bring more, you know, as much authentic learning opportunities as possible. So the use of Galaxy, the use of the programming tools and environments that we use, you know, we use Jupyter Notebooks, which is kind of a web-based notebook that allows you to go through coding. If you've never gone through, you've done any programming before, it's a real supportive environment that allows you to look at you know, the coding, and then this kind of coding fields where you can play with it and just in a safe environment, so you can just try, and you know, and you can keep those notebooks for yourself as well. So you know, there's that support. And I suppose really, you know, we're trying to sort of build in problem solving. So there's lots of case studies and examples of best practice that we draw on, you know, applied clinical bioinformatics out there that we draw on and bring in. And we, in actual fact, we designed the course with people over in within Manchester Genomics Centre there. They supplied case studies, they supplied videos, so it's very much, you know, that is key to, you know, the problem solving nature of the course. It's you know, it's authentic, and it's what we call situated learning. So you'll benefit from all the support, but the different types of tools that we'll use. I mean, that's my background, is technology enhanced learning, so we've really gone to you know, to town in terms of the support that you'll get from that. So yeah, I hope that gives you a bit of a feel for the tools that we use.
Wonderful stuff. I think also it's kind of worth mentioning as well, just with regards to, I think a lot of people wonder, oh, what's the benefit of an online course versus an on-campus course? And when you were saying about the different like discussion boards and stuff like that, obviously you get to talk to people around the world, whereas, you know, you're in a lecture theatre, somebody several rows down could have the answer that you kind of want to know, but you may never know that, you may never speak to them. Whereas an online course, you're kind of part of the participation there is that you're having these discussions, and you know, you're meeting people who are in all different kinds of work and around the world, whereas everyone on campus is kind of, they're a student, and that's kind of, that's their main sort of, I guess, employment at that time, is that they are a student. So that sounds fascinating as well. It's probably also worth mentioning that you get exactly the same support regardless of whether you're an on-campus student or an online student as well. All of that support is there for you. Some people worry that because they're online, they're not going to get that same support, but you have access to the Careers and Employability Service in exactly the same way. The tutors in exactly the same way. It's all kind of there for you, so you're not missing out on anything just because you are doing an online course. If anything, I think with the sounds of this as well, it's more enriching doing it online than necessarily what you might get on campus as well. So the way it's structured seems like a really good way to support people who want to do this course, regardless of where you are in the world as well. So some of the questions that we've had have been about how to pay for the course. We've had questions about whether you can do it in monthly instalments. For the PG Cert, the answer is no, but you do pay it in instalments. So you can either pay it upfront immediately as you register, that's not a problem. If you're able to do that, go for it. If not, then you would pay the first instalment online during registration, and then you would go on your student portal, you would get information on when the next 2 dates are, and it's 3 instalments. So you can split that if the cost is a little bit much at the start, you can split that, that's not a problem at all. And that's the same whether you are based in the UK or if you're based overseas. You would just pay in instalments in different ways. You can also, if you've got sponsors, you would contact our sponsorship team, which would be sponsor letters at manchester.ac.uk. You would contact them, and then once you've done your payments, you would then just contact our tuition fees department, which is just tuitionfees@manchester.ac.uk. And then if there's anything that's kind of going on with that, or if there are any problems, they'll get in touch with you with that. So, but it's a nice and simple process, but paying monthly isn't possible. And that's for the PG Cert. The CPD is slightly different, as you pay per unit. But if that's kind of the way that you're going down it, that would be something to talk to tuition fees about as well. Another question that we get quite a lot is the PG Cert course accredited? So it is a recognised qualification from the University of Manchester. You get a certificate and you get a transcript, and if this is a worry as well for people, it won't mention that it's online. Some people worry about kind of the reputation of an online course, but it will just say University of Manchester in the same way as if you were on campus. And it is National Qualification Framework Level 7, and the certificate and the transcript, they can support you with applications for further studies. It's also really well regarded with employers as well, and it shows that you've got that qualification covering clinical bioinformatics as well. So I think it might be time to move on to how to apply. Would you agree, Hazel?
Yeah, just one other question before we move on to how to apply. So we've got a few questions coming in now, which is absolutely fantastic, and I would just encourage you to start submitting those, and we'll be coming to those just after we do the how to apply section. But before we do that, just to say, and maybe Fran and Mike, you could talk a little bit more, is there a way people can get a taster of bioinformatics and of the course before they start studying?
Yes.
So there's a MOOC for this that sort of leads into this course that would be useful for people to take a look at. So a MOOC is a massive open online course. This is run through FutureLearn, and I guess we can put a link into the chat or if it's on the slides already, but and that's running at the moment, so that might be a good place for people to get a first impressions about what we're actually going to be going through. I mean, there's a lot more in the course than there is in the MOOC, obviously.
But it's free. It's free and a couple of hours per week, so yeah. Have a look.
Yeah, we definitely recommend taking advantage of that. And if you do start studying it as well and going through it, and you've not submitted an application already, it's a great thing to be mentioning in your personal statement as well, showing that you're already building up your knowledge and showing and demonstrating your interest in the subject area. And that probably takes us on quite nicely to the how to apply section now. Well, you're still on mute.
Is everyone seeing that okay, was my question? Yeah, awesome. Okay. So in order to apply, there are some simple steps in the same way that you would for all courses. It's checking that you meet the entry requirements. So we ask for an upper second class honours, so that would be a 2-1 in biological, medical, physical or computing science subject. And if English isn't your first language, we may also just require an English test, which is called an IELTS, equivalent to 6.5 overall with 6 in writing. And you can send us you would send admissions the evidence of that. If you're unsure before applying, then you can contact the course advisor as well, which would be me, and we can have a little chat about that as well, so that's not a problem. And then you would apply online using the link just there. Feel free to take a little photograph of it if you want to pop it down, but also you can email us and we can send that through to you as well. And I'm fairly sure that it is on the clinical bioinformatics page as well, which you can see in the little purple line at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have just put a copy of that link into the chat for everyone as well. So you can use that link there to access that. So when you're applying online, you're going to be going through an application portal. You can see a little screenshot there of the login page. And from there, you'll be prompted to complete the application form, going through each step. And that will enable us to collect all the information that we need from you to submit your application. So as part of that, you'll be submitting a personal statement. It's about 300 to 500 words that you've got to submit, and it's a great place to demonstrate why you want to study the course, demonstrate any experience that's not immediately obvious from your CV or from your previous qualifications as well. And what you're hoping to get from the course. It really helps us to get to know you a bit better and to get to understand your motivations for studying with us. We also need a recent copy of your CV showing your professional experience, and also a copy of your previous degree certificate and official transcripts from those. And if those aren't already in English, you will need to provide a translated version of those too. Evidence of English language, if applicable. So you can see the English language qualifications on the other side of the screen. We do accept quite a lot of English qualifications. So if you've perhaps got a GCSE English or an O-level English, or you've taken the TEFL or the Pearson test of English, for example, those are all other qualifications that we accept too, and you can submit those as part of the application as proof of your English language ability. And if you do have any questions about that, then you can get in touch with us and we'll be able to help. And you don't need to have this certificate at the time of applying. If you do need the English language certificate, once our admissions team have assessed your application, they will take a look and let you know and perhaps issue a conditional offer conditional on English language. And the other thing that we need as part of the application process is the contact details of 2 professional and/or academic referees. One of the questions we get asked quite a lot is there a preference between professional or academic referees? And the answer is not really. What we are more interested in from your referees is them knowing you and being able to comment on your skills and experience, and whether they recommend you for the course. So if you have 2 professional referees who can do that, then that's fantastic. If you've got 2 academic referees that can do that, then that's also absolutely fine and completely suitable. The other thing we've also recently done is we've created a walkthrough of our application portal to take people step by step through the form. It's a relatively new system, so we wanted to create that to demonstrate that for you. And I'm going to put a link to that in the chat, and you can access that through YouTube. And that answers a lot of the frequent questions that we have from people who are trying to submit their application. So I will paste that into the chat now. But that kind of sums up the information on how to apply. So we'll start now looking at the questions that you've submitted. So the first question we have is asking, is the course designed for or targeted at healthcare professionals, or is it open to people from a range of professions?
So I can answer that. So yeah, we specify those areas within the application process, but you know, we look at a range of different experiences that you've got. So it is, yeah, it's suited to healthcare professionals, but it can be suited to wider. As I mentioned earlier, we had an IT project manager who joined the course and got an awful lot from it and changed her career direction by getting involved in the course. And yeah, so yeah, basically it's wider than healthcare professionals.
So our next question that we've got is, how have previous students used the course to progress their careers?
Yeah, so I suppose we've kind of got evidence from individuals, alumni who have kind of got in touch, and we've found out that basically they're taking it, as I mentioned earlier, taking the knowledge and building their own provisions locally in terms of it can be from that, or they're taking it and transferring over to a different career within healthcare. So it's been like, because we've got such a diverse population of students, it's a diverse number of ways that they want to change their career. So yeah, it's been illuminating in the fact that we can sort of see all these different pathways that people are taking. I mean, Mike, do you want to add to that in terms of what the anecdotal evidence that you've heard?
Well, I've heard from one of the students who was in Hong Kong, I think, who went to work for a unicorn startup. I believe that's a startup valued at $1 billion, isn't it? When it goes, and he said it was the based on the course. I have mixed feelings about this, because I'm kind of thinking, why aren't I working for a $1 billion startup? But yes, so people have done these sort of things, yeah. But we haven't got, it's not easy to get feedback from all the students afterwards, but we are aware of students going into and moving into this field afterwards. Yeah.
I love the sound of a unicorn startup. That sounds
Yes, it's
wonderful.
great, isn't
it? So our next question is from one of our attendees called David. And David asks, I am a physician and I've been practicing clinical geneticists for over 20 years and feel that I need skills in bioinformatics in order to keep up with the advances in genetics and genomics field. I do not have formal training in mathematics or computer science, but I am eager to learn. Do you think it's possible for someone like me to forge a new career path using the knowledge gained from this course?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing is, clinical bioinformatics sort of sits at the junction between several different disciplines. So there's a lot of clinical input in there. There's a lot of molecular biology, and there's computer science in there as well. And no one goes into it having a broad range of all these skills. You know, everyone is picking up something completely new. So it's we have, you know, there are going to be people from an IT background who will be worried that they don't have the biology, and there'll be people from a biology background who are going to be worried that they don't have the computer science. And what we're aiming to do is to make this inclusive for everyone. So it's really not a problem. I went into bioinformatics from a molecular biology background years ago, and the training at that time was kind of, that's your desk and learn how to program. We don't do that anymore, and we actually bring people into it properly.
Yeah, and I think we've structured the course, haven't we, so that if you're coming from a background that, you know, is light on the biology side, then we recommend you do Unit 1 before you do Unit 4, so that you've kind of got that baseline, that foundations, before you go into the NGS Unit 4 level and go into that deep delve into NGS. So, but yeah, you'll get support if you're from a biology or if you're from IT computer science background. There's support on either side to help you through the course.
It seems like it's one of those courses that, as well, one of those industries rather, where things are always changing, and if you think that you know everything, you absolutely don't. And there's always like more to learn. Yeah, I think it's wonderful that it's something that is, as long as you have a little bit of knowledge on either side, that you can come in and you can quite easily transfer those skills across. It certainly seems very, very good for that kind of thing. So thank you for your answers for that one. We've got 2 more left. So one is, oh no, we have 3 more left. We've got a third one that's just come in. So are there any particular programs you need to have on your computer to complete the course?
No, I don't think so. It's done using web-based tools. So so things like the next generation sequencing analysis, you'll be using online tools based at Manchester, so you don't have to have all that software on your machine. It wouldn't be possible to do it anyway. You need to have a large computer cluster to do it.
Yeah, that's it. And in terms of the programming, then that again, I mentioned the Jupyter notebooks, that, you know, they are again web delivered instructional content that will help you start to develop your coding knowledge. There are open source platforms in order to help you start developing that Python programming knowledge a bit further. But again, you know, a standard laptop and the minimum spec, I think, is included within the induction materials anyway. I think we can probably share that. But essentially, it's just so you can have, as long as you've got admin rights to your machine, then you can download this open source programming pieces of software as well. So.
Yeah, we're definitely not expecting people to have a full computer lab. So no, it is designed for you to learn at home. So, marvellous, thank you very much for that. Is there a cap on the number of applicants that we accept for the course?
I don't think there is, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's open, and then we just basically we take each application on merit. So we've got those guidelines that we've mentioned earlier in terms of background and discipline. But if you've got significant experience, then we look at everybody's application and against the guidelines. But yeah, there's no cap.
Marvelous stuff. Good to hear. So this final one, I think I can probably answer. This is I'm hoping to apply for the course that's starting in May. I'm wondering whether there is still time to apply for the course. That absolutely is, yes. So we are encouraging people to get their applications in by the end of April. That just gives our admissions team a chance to get in touch with you if there are any questions, if there's anything else that we need to find out. That gives them a good amount of time to get in touch with you. The course starts on the 30th of May, and we would like applications to be in before the 16th of May at the latest, but the end of April we're absolutely looking at for kind of the best chance of having that application looked at. As course advisors, we don't do any of the assessing of the course. We can help you all the way up to that point, but that is the admissions team that do that. So it's best to kind of be able to get your questions into us as quick as possible, and then get your application in by the end of April, so that we can make sure there's no delays in getting you on the course starting on the 30th of May. So I hope that answers that question for you.
Yeah, and Noah, just really quickly, there's been another question in the chat as well from someone who is currently working on the development of a variant calling pipeline using tools like Apache Spark, Project Glow, etc. Would they be able to get guidance from the faculty if needed?
Is this a tool for a PhD project? I'm not. I'm sure. Yes, if it's within the range of expertise on the programming side of things, then yeah, I'm sure we could do. But it's. I'm not sure if this is a company or an individual on a PhD project. So it's an unusual question.
Okay, so it's something that we might need to follow up.
Yeah, so if you
afterwards.
could give us some more details on that, and we can yeah, give you a
if there's any more information that you can provide for us, feel free to email the study online at manchester.ac.uk email address, and we can forward that on to Mike and Fran, and we can have a little bit of discussion about that and see if we can get an answer out to you. And that goes for if there are any more questions, if you've been a little bit shy about asking, or if after this suddenly you think, oh, I wish I had have asked that, then we do have the study online email address, which is on screen. Feel free to send that in, and I will try and get those answers for you as soon as possible with Mike and Fran's help.
Sorry, there's another question just turned up on the Q&A thing.
Oh, so there has, yeah. Let's have a little look. Does the certification translate to a particular level of educational certification in the US?
We'd have to look at that and maybe respond after the session.
Yeah,
so
we'll
I guess
probably have to check that with the admissions team. I imagine they would have a little look at that for us. Is that correct, Hazel?
Yeah, so we can follow up in more detail afterwards with you, but as a general rule, so this is an NFQ level 7 qualification, so it's although it's not a full master's, it's kind of a master's standard, but it's a shorter qualification in the sense that it's less credits. So it's broadly equivalent to the standard that you would get from a master's degree. We can look up the particular terms that that refers to and just check the equivalencies in the US, and we can check that with our admissions team and get back to you and confirm that exactly with you after this webinar.
Awesome. So if that is it, have we had any more in the chat? Just checking. Or is that all of our questions? We had them all through, yeah. Marvelous stuff. I mean, that's been really interesting for me to kind of hear, and I hope it's been interesting for all of you as well, and that it's answered any questions that you've had. As I said, if any questions have come up, feel free to just pop them through to Study Online, and we will answer them as soon as possible, and hopefully we can get all of that sorted so you can get your applications in nice and early, and we can get all of that sorted. So we are coming to the end of the webinar, so I just want to say thank you for joining us, and thank you to Fran and to Mike as well for all of the information that you've given us. I've certainly learned a lot about it, and I'm sure that you'd all agree that it's been incredibly engaging, and been really just wonderful to hear about the people who are currently on the course, the people who who are experiencing the units at the moment, and your experiences of the clinical bioinformatics, I guess, industry, and how teaching that has gone as well. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge. It's really, really appreciated. As I said before, if you do have any questions after the webinar, or if you just want to discuss the course a bit more, then get in touch with us, and you'll be contacting me, studyonline@manchester.ac.uk, hammering that email in so that everybody gets it. As we said earlier, the applications for clinical bioinformatics are open now for May 2022, and we do encourage you to get those applications in by the end of April. So if there are no further questions, and if there's anything that Fran or Mike want to add at this point, is there anything else that you wanted to drop in?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's fine.
No.
Yeah, hopefully we've answered everybody's questions,
Yeah,
and inspired them to come and apply.
I feel inspired, so hopefully everybody else does. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. I really hope that you found the session useful and informative, and we look forward to seeing you all in May.
Great, thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.